Hi, today we're going to be talking about the four cornerstones of security, which is confidentiality, integrity, availability, and privacy. Essentially, with confidentiality, what we're really doing is we're really hiding the original data, right? We're encrypting. So the first option here is encryption, right? And that is the most strongest way that we can execute on confidentiality. And there's different types of encryption. There's encryption at rest, which is basically encrypting the data while it's stored on the hard disk. An example of this is AES 256. There's also encryption in transit. So this is basically ensuring that data is confidential and secure as it's moving from place to place. An example of this would be TLS. And then obviously encryption in use. For example, as the data is being processed, it is still encrypted. Another form of confidentiality is tokenization. Okay, not as secure as encryption, but it does still provide confidentiality. An example of this would be with PCI compliance and in credit card processing, where a server, instead of holding the actual credit card numbers, it will hold tokens that represent the actual credit card number. So when the credit card information would be needed, then the server will reach the actual server that actually has the credit card information and swap the tokens for the actual credit card numbers, right? Again, not as secure as encryption, but still a form of confidentiality. And then finally is obfuscation. And in this instance, what you're really doing here is you take something and you're just swapping out randomly letters and numbers and masking the original data. Again, not as secure as encryption, but it is providing confidentiality because you are hiding the actual original data. The next cornerstone is integrity. And what the essence of integrity is that you want to ensure something has not changed, okay? And how do we do that? We do that through hash functions, right? So let me give an example here. That user A wants to send some data to user B, but user B wants to make sure that that data sent by user A has not changed. So what user A will simply do is take that message and put it through the hash function, and it will produce what is called a hash value. Then user A will send the original message along with the hash value, which is the output of the hash function, to user B. When user B receives the message and the hash value, it itself will also take the original message and put it through the hash function, and he or she will also generate a hash value of that original message. Now what user B will then do is compare the hash value that it generated to the hash value that it received from user A. If they both match, then the integrity of the message is in place and it has not changed. If it is different, then obviously something has changed along the way. An example of hash functions is SHA-256. And an important point to bring up at this stage is that encryption and hash functions are not the same. They're actually different. Just keep that in mind, okay? And then the next cornerstone of security is availability. And through availability, we just want to ensure that systems are available all the time. And we can do this through backups. We can do this through fault tolerant. And we can also do this through high availability. Now, just to keep in mind here, there are some subtle differences between fault tolerant and high availability, right? So think in terms of fault tolerant as very tightly coupled systems with minimum downtime. And for example, you'll have multiple copies of, for example, an image, right? Fault tolerant is always available. High availability, loosely coupled systems, there may be a little bit of outage as you transition from one system to the next, right? So both of them do provide availability, but executed in a different way. And then the final cornerstone of security here is privacy. And this is gaining a lot of traction over the last couple of years and is becoming more and more important and equally part of this whole cornerstones of security. Now, privacy is essentially laws and regulations. We want to ensure our data is private. There are laws and regulations, for example, the General Data Protection Regulation in Europe. We have the California Consumer Privacy Act, and it's all about making sure that users' data is secure. How do we control this? Okay, we control this through data loss protection tools, where it can scan data as it's leaving an organization or as it's entering an organization to make sure that there's no data leakage. Okay, so just to recap here, right? The four cornerstones of security: confidentiality, integrity, availability, privacy. They all have important purposes in terms of security. Thank you.